Well, greetings and salutations, everybody. Welcome to my YouTube channel. My name is John Campea, and this is a companion video. What are companion videos? Well, I'm awfully glad that you asked. See, every day on the John Campea Show, Monday through Friday, we take the second half of the show to take your live comments and questions that you send in through the tip link. However, we usually don't have enough time to get around to all the questions that get sent in, but I want to make sure you guys don't have to wait too long to get those questions answered. So I gather up the ones we didn't get around to, and we address them here on companion videos. And I hope you guys have had a great weekend. Don't forget the John Campea Show returns again tomorrow. Can't wait to go see Godzilla vs. Kong on Wednesday. I know many of you guys are planning on watching it too, but let's not waste any time and get right to it, shall we? We're going to start getting caught up here with Caleb, who writes in, what Kevin Tsujihara did in 2017 with Justice League may be the worst case of studio incompetence I've ever seen. It actually wasn't incompetence, it was outright personal greed. But, and that is, they are two different things. Kevin Tsujihara is a very, very smart movie executive, but he did something that was so self-serving to the detriment of the good of the company. It was crazy. It wasn't incompetence, but it was worse than that. Anyway, the worst case of studio incompetence I've ever seen. He went into a $250 million production, not really trusting Snyder's vision. Then, after production was done, he decides he does not like what he sees. So he fires Snyder and hires Whedon, but gives him insane mandates for runtime, story, etc. Side note, 2.5 hour plus movie can make money. Just look at Lord of the Rings, Avatar, Titanic, Endgame, etc. Plus, no extra time because he got greedy and wanted his bonus. And look at what happened. We got a bad movie, to me. It did terribly. He got fired. Everything was a mess for around 8 months. So happy we have Hamada and Emmerich running things now. DC is in much better hands. Yeah, again, the whole thing about... Now, I was somebody who... I mean, look, take nothing away. Kevin Tsujihara had a very long career and made a lot of very, very smart decisions and made a lot of people a lot of money. Like, he was a very shrewd, sharp studio executive. He just was. And then somewhere near the end, then he got caught up in some controversies. And then, of course, the whole thing with Justice League and that. But what should he have done? I would contend that there's 4 or 5 options that Warner Brothers had at their disposal when doing Justice League. And like almost all of them would have been perfectly fine options. And just one of them was the truly wrong option. Just one of them was the truly wrong option. You know, give me a second. Let me bring up Campea Classroom here for a second. Let's jump into the Campea Classroom for a second here, shall we? Okay, here we go. Let's go into the Campea Classroom for a second. Okay, and we'll call this Campea Classroom, what Warner Brothers should have done with Justice League. Okay, let's talk about this for a second. So let's remember this scenario. After Man of Steel, one of the all-time greatest comic book movies ever, and Batman vs. Superman, which I like very much, what the reality that set in with a lot of WB executives was that their DC universe, particularly the one that Snyder was doing, was not working. Now, your criteria about what works and my criteria about what works and what studio executives' criteria of what works may be different, but to them, it was not working. They were looking around and seeing that, you know, Marvel had created and brought the comic book genre to being the most dominant genre at the box office. You know, they had just seen, you know, Iron Man make 1.2 or Iron Man 3 making like $1.3 billion, a nothing character compared to Superman, and Superman struggled to crack 600 million. Half the audience hated it, half the critics hated it. Batman versus Superman came out, which I thought was pretty good. It had some weaknesses, sure. It did, absolutely. I'm not going to deny that. It had some struggles, but overall, I thought it was a very good, entertaining film. And it made more than Man of Steel did. But when you have a movie called Batman versus Superman, your starting point should be $1.3, $1.4, $1.5 billion. When you have the two most celebrated comic book characters in history, arguably the two best comic book characters in history, you should be looking at, I mean, $1 billion in your sleep. And if things go really perfectly, $2 billion. The thing struggled to make $800 million. And again, it really divided the fans and it really divided the critics. So the context at the time was that after Batman versus Superman came out, there was a big debate going on amongst the executives at Warner Brothers. This stuff we now know. A bunch of them wanted to move on from Snyder and kind of restart. They wanted to cancel Justice League. Not so much cancel it, or at least, indefinitely postpone it so they could get a different director and come up with a new script and all this kind of stuff, whatever. And some of them thought it was too late to move on from Snyder. They were just, when Batman versus Superman came out, I can't remember the exact number of days, but it was just mere weeks. It was mere weeks away from when Justice League was supposed to start shooting. And a lot of execs at WB thought it's too late. So let's move forward with Snyder and do that. He shot the film. He showed his cut to the executives. A lot of the executives didn't like it. Then a lot of personal tragedy with Zack Snyder. Zack Snyder and Warner Brothers part ways. They go ahead and get Joss Whedon to pare down the movie and put out something else. All right. So there's our context. In that scenario, and with that understanding of what led them to that point, there are several things Warner Brothers could have done that would have been perfectly fine options, and only one that was completely the wrong thing to do, and that's the thing they ended up doing. Let's jump over the Campea classroom again. Okay, so what could they have done? Number one, first thing I guess you could have done was just cancel Justice League. I mean, if you're Warner Brothers and you realize, and this could have happened either before they started shooting Justice League or after Zack Snyder showed them the cut. So like either before shooting or after Zack Snyder presents first cut. Okay? At either one of those times, you could have, I'm not saying this would have been necessarily smart, but if you were Warner Brothers, you could have just pulled the plug. Is that an ideal option? No, it's not an ideal option, especially since they already invested hundreds of millions of dollars. Not an ideal option. However, if you did pull the plug, let's look at the benefit. If you did just pull the plug, right, you get no franchise damage. In other words, like, you're not putting out something awful that damages your franchise overall. The drawbacks, obviously, you invested hundreds of millions of dollars. Now, look, I'm not saying I would have pulled the plug on it, but after seeing it, they could have just pulled the plug on it. All right. So that's an acceptable thing they could have done. There would have been some advantages. Okay. Second thing they could have done is this. They could have hired a new, oops, I accidentally hit cap locks. Sorry about that. Hired a new director prior to starting shoot. So even though Batman versus Superman comes out, it did not get the reception they were hoping for. It didn't get the financial results they were hoping for. They had a few weeks. Now, granted, it's a bad situation. It was. But they really could have just said, you know what? We're going to change directions. This is not, and remember, this is before they spent all the money on production. They probably already spent a lot of money on contracts and everything, but you just sometimes have to bite the bullet and say, you know what? That's lost money. This is not what our Justice League should be. We need to hire a new director. We need to delay the start of shooting to give a new director a different vision for what they want to do and then go forward. Is that ideal? No. Is there drawbacks to that? Sure. But that was an option that was available to them to just, bring in a new director, postpone the start of shooting for a year, let a new director put a new Justice League film together, and start moving in a different direction. That was an option that they could have done. Ideal? No, but that is one of the options, and that's an acceptable option. Okay, let's go to option number 3. The third option that they would have had was this. So they go ahead and they start shooting it. One of the options they have was just release Zack Snyder's movie. They could have done that. They could have just said, no, I get it. We don't want, they would have, listen, there is no reality that they ever would have let Zack Snyder release a 4-hour movie. There is no reality any studio would have allowed that. But They could have gone, they just could have said to Zach, you got to get this thing down to 3 hours and 15 minutes or whatever. But they could have, at the end of the day, just said, just put the movie out. Just put the movie out. Is there drawback? Yes. A lot of the WB executives weren't happy with the direction the DCU was going. A lot of the fans were divided over Zack Snyder's DCU stuff. The critics are clearly divided over what he's put out so far. Sure. But at that point, you've shot the movie. You've spent the lion's share of the money. You might as well just follow it through. You might as well just follow it through. Yeah, they're never going to let him put out a 4-hour version. I think we all understand that. But okay, pare it down. There's a lot in the Zack Snyder's Justice League 4-hour thing that was on HBO that easily could have been cut out. There's a lot of bloat in there. There was a lot of bloat in it. So you could have easily gotten a half hour out. And, maybe 3.5 hours is too long to release in theater. I don't know, but go 3 hours and 15, 3 hours, 20, whatever. That was an option that was available to them. They chose not to do it. So fine. Option number 4, which also could have worked. Let Joss Whedon make his own movie. Now, this is very similar to point number 1. But now we're talking exclusively after Zack Snyder has shot his stuff. The WB executives weren't happy with the movie. They didn't want it that long. They could have just turned to a Joss Whedon and said, just make your own. Can you use as much of what Zack shot as possible? Can you use as much as possible just to save us money? But if you can do just as much as you can, but you have the freedom to change the story of the movie if you wish, make a different movie if you want, but go ahead and make a different movie. Now, that would have had the drawback of being very expensive. Yes. There's no doubt there is that drawback, but it would have been an okay, acceptable option for them to try. So there are those. Then there's the 5th option. And this is the option they went with. Okay? Insert Joss Whedon. Give him no creative leeway. Give him no time. And mandate a 2-hour flat runtime. Okay. This is the one they decided to do. And this, out of all the options, this one, out of all the options, was the only one that was just completely and utterly unacceptable. Like, yes, all of these other 4 options, 1, 2, 3, and 4, they all have their drawbacks. They all have their drawbacks, but they all also had some potential upside. This scenario right here that Warner Brothers ultimately decided to go with is the only one of the 5 they could have done that would have left them in an absolute no-win situation. Right? Because with this option, you make nobody happy, and you pretty much ensure you can't have a success. So they bring in Joss Whedon, they say, cut it down to 2 hours, take out anything that references another movie after this, because we're not doing another movie after this. And then if you need to shoot a couple of extra scenes to make this new Frankenstein down version make a little bit more narrative sense to itself, go ahead and do that. But you can't change the story. We don't want to spend any more than the absolute bare minimum to make this thing happen. And you get absolutely no time. We are not changing the release date because, as our viewer wrote in, Kevin Tsujihara, and this is something we didn't find out until later, Kevin Tsujihara knew that with the upcoming AT&T merger, his job was in peril. Which happens with mergers. That happens. So he knew, hey, I'm a bright guy. I know that my job may become expendable once this merger happens. Okay, what can I do in the meantime? My bonuses are based on the box office results we get of movies within the calendar year. Don't you dare change. You cannot push off Justice League into another calendar year. Can't do it. No extra time for you. Because Kevin Tsujihara wanted his bonus, according to all the reports that came out about it. And these are in not even in Gus's gas station reviews.fart. I mean, the major trades. This is what came out. And because of that, they went with the only truly horrible option. All the other options had drawbacks, sure. But the only truly horrible no-win situation option they had is the one they went with for the exclusive purpose that Kevin Tsujihara and a couple of the other Warner Brothers execs could get a bigger bonus check. And that's why they made that decision. And this is why, when I say, like, a lot of people hear me say all the time, and I continue to say it, Joss Whedon saved Justice League. People mistake me saying Joss Whedon saved Justice League from Zack Snyder. That's never what I said. What I specifically said was, when you looked at those situations, when you looked at that context and that environment, that he was asked to come in, you don't get to change or write your own story. You got to cut this whole movie completely in half, still make it at least make some sense. Oh, and by the way, you get no extra time. We're still keeping the release date. The fact that Joss Whedon was able to walk into that kind of chaos and put any semblance of a movie together and get it out in theaters to the point that it basically broke even, depending on who you listen to. Like, one major trade says it made a little bit of money. One major trade says they lost a little bit of money. Some others say they completely broke even. But either way, the fact that Joss Whedon was able to walk into that chaos, that shitstorm, and deliver that movie on time and on budget is remarkable. He saved it. Most other directors would never have been able to get that thing out. And maybe, just maybe, it would have been better if they never did put it out. Maybe they just should have gone with option number one and just canceled the damn thing. I understood they would have had to, they would have lost a lot more money that way. Yes, I get it, but it would have prevented damaging the IP, right? And I say that as somebody, I liked the theatrical version. Not as much as Batman versus Superman, certainly not like a Man of Steel, but I still liked the theatrical version. I had fun with it. But at the end of the day, it was the only, out of all the options they had, they picked the one, and it was because, just like you said there, it was because of Kevin Tsujihara and a few other Warner Brothers execs who got greedy, wanted their budget, wanted their bonus to be bigger, and they forced the timeline. And by forcing the timeline, they took out the option. Number one, you couldn't just pull the plug on it because no bonus. You couldn't push couldn't actually bring in a real new director to give their own vision because that would push at the film and no bonus. You couldn't have given Joss Whedon more leeway time to do the thing because that would push it into the next calendar year, no bonus. All the other options equaled less bonus for Kevin Tsujihara, and so he went with the option, as even though it was the absolute worst one, he went with the option that ensured that Kevin Tsujihara got a bigger bonus. And look, I'm not naive. I know probably almost every studio exec, but almost every exec of every company ever probably would be tempted by it or has done it. I get it. But that's the way I kind of see that, Caleb. So anyway, thanks for writing that in, man. All right, next up. Amir writes, I completely see what you're saying about Alfred. Okay. So there's this. We'll address this one, and then we'll talk about it for a second. I completely see what you're saying about Alfred and Bruce's conversation afterwards, because it does make it a bit confusing. But before Bruce leaves, he clearly says that he's going after Rachel. So obviously the Joker tricked him. Okay, I will address it. We did this on the previous companion video. There were about 7 or 8 questions that were lined up for this companion video that were all completely identical. So I'm going to answer this one to kind of cover. So everybody else who sent in the exact same question, and they were all the exact same questions, let me address this once, and then we're not going to address the other ones because this covers all of them. Okay, here we go. So for those of you who missed it, and if you saw the last companion video, I did the same thing, but let me do it one more time for this video, but only once. So a week or two ago, talking about something else entirely, The Dark Knight came up, and it was just kind of casually mentioned through a question that I believed that when Batman was racing to save either Rachel or Two-Face, Harvey Dent at the time, I believe that he intentionally went after Harvey Dent, and he intentionally saved him. Now, there's something that all of us have to accept. And ever since I said that, oh my God, people lost their minds. A lot of you guys completely lost your minds. And it's like this became the number one most important topic to be discussed on the John Campea Show. So here's the thing. what we all have to accept is that the movie never definitively says either, A, yeah, there's no scene where Bruce Wayne says, "Damn it, Alfred, the Joker tricked me. I was going to save Rachel and he tricked me." That's never said in the movie. What is also never said in the movie is the opposite of that. There's no scene where Bruce is talking to Alfred, "You know, Alfred, I was going to go rescue Rachel, but I realized what Gotham needed was Harvey Dent. He's the hero of Gotham, and so I changed my mind, and I went to go get Harvey Dent." He never says that in the movie. So Bruce, after the event, Bruce never says, "The Joker tricked me." He also never says, "I changed my mind." So we're left to look at the surrounding, both the before and after scene of the explosion, to try to glean what we thought was going through Batman's head, okay? Now, let me say this first. I don't care what the answer to this question is. I really don't. This is such an unimportant question because the answer to this question does not change the narrative moving forward of The Dark Knight, nor does it change our overall perception in every subsequent scene afterwards of Bruce Wayne or Harvey Dent or anything. It is a completely unimportant question. So I could be 1,000% right about this, and I don't care. I could have Christopher Nolan call me and say, "John, by the way, you were wrong about that." I'll go, "Cool. I don't care. It's not an important question." To me, the question of, was Bruce actually going after Rachel or actually going after Harvey, is about as important as asking in The Dark Knight Rises, what was Bane's favorite flavor of ice cream? That's about as important. So I really don't care. I don't care about this question. It's not important. And I certainly didn't mean to start a huge debate about it when I gave my 2 cents on it. Like just as an average viewer, how I interpreted when it happened. With that being said, a lot of people will look at the notion that when Bruce leaves to go after one of them, he's asked, "Who are you going for?" And he specifically says, "Rachel," right? So based on that, you could totally go with the notion that he got tricked by the Joker. Even though Bruce never says in the movie, "Joker tricked me, I meant to get Rachel," you could totally get that from that scene that happens prior to the explosion. However, what me and some other people, we're in the minority, but me and some other people think, when you listen to the conversation that Bruce has with Alfred afterwards, if Bruce did not intend to change his mind and go after Two-Face, the entire conversation between Bruce and Alfred afterwards makes no sense. Because Bruce never laments, "I got tricked." He never laments that. He only says, he asks, "I wonder if I brought this on Rachel because of the lifestyle he leads." Alfred says, "Rachel understood. Gotham needs its hero." And that's when he says, I'm not Gotham's hero. Harvey is Gotham's hero, and I got him half blown to hell. So he's taking responsibility for Harvey. So to me, if he didn't change his mind and decide to go after Rachel, that second scene between Bruce and Alfred, then the scene makes no sense. So if you look at it from that point of view, it looks like maybe he changed his mind and went. Ultimately, only Christopher Nolan can answer this question, but I'm not going to tweet to Christopher Nolan because I just don't care. I mean, like all y'all, those of you, and like I said, you at least outnumber me and the people who agree with me 2-1, minimum, double. You may be right, but I don't care. It's not an important question. So, okay, maybe you're right, and maybe I'm wrong. Or maybe I'm right, maybe you're wrong. But that's at least, I'm giving you my explanation, not to try to change your mind, not at all. I'm giving you my explanation just so you understand why I would think that. Because I put a little bit more weight on the scene that comes after, whereas a lot of you are putting more weight on the scene that comes before. And I don't think either is right or wrong. Christopher Nolan knows the answer to that. I'm sure everybody has an opinion about it, but at the end of the day, it's not an important question to the movie. It is as important as what was Bane's favorite flavor of ice cream. It doesn't really matter. It doesn't really impact any way we understand the movie or how it progresses if somehow we knew, my favorite flavor is Rocky Road. Oh my God, that completely changes the way I see this movie. So I could be right about Bruce's intentions. I could be wrong. It just doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. So that's why. Anyway, so like I said, there were about 6 or 7 other questions that were completely identical to Amir's here, completely identical. So I've now covered it once. I've answered it. So just for all of you who sent in the exact same question, take that as the overarching answer. And I'm sure there will still be people who want to continue to put in their 2 cents, but I don't want to talk about it anymore because I don't care what the answer is. I don't care. I understand why people who agree with me think that way. I understand why the people who don't agree with me think that way. I totally get it. The movie actually gives no definitive answer. You know, again, Bruce never takes a scene and says, oh, Alfred, I got tricked. He never has a scene where he says, oh, Alfred, I changed my mind and went after Harvey. There is nothing in the movie that gives us a definitive answer. So if you guys think the same way I do, great, but it's not important. If you guys disagree with me on this, great, but it's not important. So anyway, there's that. Now let's move on, shall we? After I take a sip of my delicious Diet Pepsi. Yeah, I'm treating myself to a Diet Pepsi today. Okay, next up. We've got War Doctor 10, who writes, hey, John and crew. Just wanted to make a clarification on my question from a bit earlier that it was Survivor Series 2018, not 2017, and Royal Rumble 2019 that I had gone after WrestleMania. I remember the question War Doctor wrote in the other day, asking me if I'd ever gone to any of the major WWE events. I had gone to one WrestleMania, and he listed off a couple that he went to, so thank you for the clarification on that, War Doctor. Okay, next up, Sai Kata writes, hey, John. I've been a fan of you since the AMC days. Thank you so much. And you're a huge inspiration in my life. I recently directed and acted in a short film. Very cool. And I would love it if you could watch it and provide me some criticism. What's the best way to reach out to you? While I totally am honored, Sai, that you'd want to get my opinion on that, I cannot accept. And only because, don't take that the wrong way, only because I literally get requests like that every day. People writing me say, I wrote a screenplay. Can you watch it? I recorded a song. Can you listen to it? I made a YouTube video. Can you watch it? I did a short film. Can you watch it? Literally, I'm not joking. I'm not exaggerating. It's not hyperbole when I say I get 1, 2, or 3 of those every single day. And I just don't have time to do that, unfortunately. And I have to make it a rule that I don't do it, because if I did it one time, then why did I pick yours to watch and not everybody else's? And that could be construed as a little bit offensive. And I definitely don't want to offend anybody. So while I am totally honored, Sai, while I am totally honored that you would ask me for that, and I really deeply am, and good on you for making it, dude. I think all film fans should get involved in that kind of stuff, and good on you for doing it. But unfortunately, no, I can't do that, because if I did that for you, then it'd be insulting to everybody else that I don't have time to do that for. So I hope you understand. But again, don't misunderstand me. I am totally proud of you, dude, for doing that. You did something only the 1% does. 100% of people say they want to do something like that, whether it's writing a book, writing a screenplay, making a movie, whatever. Everybody says they want to do it. It's the 1% that actually get off their ass to do it. And you did it, and I'm proud of you for that, man. So well done. All right, next up, we've got Mr. TJ Lin, who writes, despite being famous before the mid-1990s, the first of Mel Gibson's movies I saw was in the mid-1990s with Conspiracy Theory, yes, co-starring Julia Roberts, and Payback, co-starring Greg Henry, Star-Lord's grandfather. What are some of your favorite Mel's acted films? Mel, you know, he's a really great actor. I mean, listen, everybody's got opinions about Mel Gibson, and I don't blame you for any of the opinions you may have. Let me just bring this up, though. Mel Gibson. Let's bring this up. There's the one, why am I freezing on the Shakespeare one he did? It's not Othello, obviously. I knew him well. I can even remember lines from the movie, and I can't remember which one it specifically is. Why am I freezing? It wasn't force of nature. Machete kills. Get the gringo. Brainstorm the beaver. Power price. Not signs we were sold. I cannot believe I'm freezing on the name of the one Shakespearean one he did. Although I think Hamlet. Hamlet. Yes, Hamlet. Might be Hamlet. Not a great movie. Not a great iteration of Hamlet. Not a fabulous iteration of Hamlet, but pretty darn good. Pretty darn good. And I actually really liked his performance in it. I liked his performance in it a lot. But then again, I really like his performance in just about everything. He's a great actor. And again, a lot of people have a lot of different opinions about Mel Gibson, and I don't blame you for any of the opinions you may have. I'm just saying, if we're talking about how is he as an actor, damn, the guy's good. He's really good. Like, he's no Daniel Day-Lewis. He's no Chiwetel Ejiofor. He's no Denzel Washington. But he's in that next, I believe, that next tier down. Like, there's the top shelf of actors that's only inhabited by like 10 or 11 or 12 actors. And then there's that next tier down of extremely exceptional. And I think Mel Gibson is one of those. So anyway, yeah, there's that. And of course, Braveheart. Braveheart's a top 20 film of all time, in my estimation. Braveheart's a top 20 film of all time, so I always got to go to that one as well. All right, let's move over to the next one here. Next up, Mr. TJ Lynn writes, who is the better actor turned director, Mel Gibson, Clint Eastwood, or Ben Affleck? Mine is Mel. Well, I mean, if you're as a director, that's tough because all three of them are legendary. Ben Affleck, I mean, in my estimation, he's 4 for 4. Like, with 3 incredibly awesome films and 1 pretty darn good film in We Run the Night is pretty darn good. His other ones are absolutely bloody fantastic. But he's not in the same conversation with a Mel Gibson or a Clint Eastwood. These are both Academy Award winners. You know what? I'm going to say Mel, but it depends on the day you ask me. Another day, like a week from now, you can ask me the same question, and I may say Clint for the body of work. The only reason today I'm going to lean with Mel is because I believe, Mel made the best individual movie out of all of them, and that's Braveheart. Braveheart is a top 20 all-time film to me. Now, Clint Eastwood has more AAA title movies that he's done. I mean, Mystic River, anyway. But just because I think Braveheart is the best, I'll lean towards that. But again, if you ask me the same question in a week or two, I may totally say Clint Eastwood. So there's that. All right, next up. TJ also writes, what is your go-to movie cinema now that AMC Burbank is too far? And by the way, I was about to recommend Gladiator for Movies in 20, but it seems you've already sold. Thank you. Yeah, actually, the next Movies in 20, you guys know we started that new little series called Movies in 20, where we do a full run-through of like movies that you might hear some people talk about, but you never saw it yourself. Well, we give you the full run-through in 20 minutes. And we've done 2 of them so far. One was Last Starfighter, and one was Mystery Men. We've already recorded our one for Gladiator. Gladiator is going to be the next one that we put out. It's already recorded. We're just working on the editing on it right now, and that will be out there soon. So yes, there's that one. I don't really have a go-to theater right now, because when I was in Burbank, I literally lived like a 10-minute walk from like one of the greatest movie theaters in North America, the AMC Burbank 16. I just lived like a 10-minute walk from it. So that was easy. Now I have multiple movie theaters within about a 10 to 15 minute drive of me. Certainly one that I default to a lot being out here is the AMC Tyler at the Tyler Galleria in Riverside. Living in Riverside. But so the AMC Tyler Galleria, that's one. I mean, I've gone to the movies twice since I've been here. One time we rented a movie theater to watch a private screening of Indiana Jones and the Last Crusade. And then Ann and I just went to go watch Nobody, which I really had a good time with Nobody. Nobody was so good with Bob Odenkirk. So much fun. Anyway, but there are several others that are not far from me that I'll be going to a lot of the different ones. But the one I'll probably go to more often than not is probably the AMC Tyler Galleria. All right, next up. Randall McMurphy writes, 1 of 4. I know this may sound silly to some, but I just needed to write down my thanks to you, John. Oh, that's always nice. And your team, the movie fan community, and a special thanks to Zack Snyder, his masterpiece version of Justice League, and his selection of music for it. Your show has been one of the things that lights up my days in these tumultuous last years, and included a divorce from the woman I love. My love for movies and storytelling in general is what connects me and grounds me to my humanity and hope, as it is for many of us, Randall. Snyder's personal tragedy is plastered in his hopeful and emotional portrayal of the heroes we all love. His 2 heart-rending song selections, including that Hallelujah, was just the trigger I needed to let all my sentiments just pour out and flow. That is what storytelling in general can do to you. It is truly magical. So thank you, John, for being one of the shepherds of this magical journey of the human spirit. Well, listen, first of all, Randall, something that you mentioned in there is something that I completely resonates with me. And I could totally agree with, and that I can speak to from experience, is that when times are rough or tumultuous or whatever, there's something magical about the movies. The movies, and many of you have heard me say it before, but I'll say it every show I do from now till I retire. The movies are not just an escape. They're an escape to a degree, and that's good. We all need that once in a while. But movies are more than an escape. They're so much more than that. Whatever is going on in your life, when you sit down to watch a movie, and I know, like, through you guys who have watched me for the last couple of years, you've been through me through death of family members, the loss of my best friend growing up, a lot of bad stuff. Anyway, a movie, yeah, you can escape into a movie for a second, but when we get into a movie, our imaginations are fed, they're triggered, we get whisked away into the possibilities of what the world is, what it could be, how we'd want it to be, how we fear it could be, all that kind of stuff. And all these sorts of things. And then when we come out of a movie, and again, I'm just speaking for myself, and it sounds like, Randall, you've had the same experience. When we come out of a movie, it's not that the troubles in our lives disappear. They're still there. But our minds are rested. Our minds are refreshed, and we may just be in a better place to engage those troubles, and maybe also have a little bit of a fresh perspective on those troubles, because our imaginations have been at work for an hour and a half to 3 hours of being immersed in the magic of storytelling. And that, to me, is really the true power of movies and stories. I think it's why we as a species are storytellers. I think it's why we celebrate the arts so much. I think it's why, and even when you're not watching a movie, when you engage with a community of fellow fans of movies, it does the same thing. We get to engage with each other, our imaginations go wild, and when we come out of those things, maybe we're a little bit more refreshed, maybe we have a little bit of a different perspective, and maybe, just maybe, we're able to deal with those issues a little bit more. And that is the magic of the movies. And even the worst movie in the world can be that absolute thing that somebody needs when they watch it, because all film is subjective and it's got that power. So I'm glad that movies and the movie fan community have been there for you, Randall, and thanks for sharing that, man. I really appreciate that. All right, next up. Mike Lovin writes, 1 of 3. Hey, John, I just realized something after the third time watching Snyder Cut, which was awesome. After watching the scene where the League fights Superman, which is in both cuts, I realized that Wonder Woman is indeed bulletproof. How so? She was not shot in that scene. Arguably, Superman is the most powerful being on Earth and could crack the planet in half if he wanted. So when Wonder Woman takes a headbutt from the Superman, which is devastatingly powerful on any scale, she doesn't just take it. She takes it and hits him back hard. So if she can take a hit from Superman, she can take anything. If not bulletproof, she is bullet resistant. Ask yourself, John, what's more powerful, Superman or a bullet? It's one or the other, can't be both. No, that's a complete false equivalence, because this is fictional fairy tale movie telling. Look, the debate about and the discussion, which is actually relevant to the movies, unlike the whole Bruce Wayne thing, the discussion about, is Wonder Woman even bulletproof in the MCU, in the DCEU? We're not talking about the comic books. We're not talking about, in the DCEU, is Wonder Woman bulletproof? I still contend, where my belief is right now, is that no, she's not bulletproof. Because if you are bulletproof, you do not need to do the whole song and dance every time there are bullets coming of having to block it with your wrist bracelets. There's no need to do that. Just do what Superman does. When somebody's shooting bullets at him, just... When Steppenwolf is dropping the axe on him, I'm not impressed. You know, you don't, like, when bullets are flying at little girls, you don't reduce your chance of stopping them by just throwing out your wrist. You put your body in front of it and just go, as her music plays, na, 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 na. Like as that music plays, that Hans Zimmer and the electric cello's playing, you just have Wonder Woman stand there, boom, 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 na, 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 and she's seeing bullets bouncing up. But that's not what they've done in any of the times Wonder Woman's been in the DCEU. Whenever there are bullets flying, she's either taking cover, getting behind something, or she's got to try to block it with her bracelets. If she's bulletproof, she doesn't need to do any of that. She just walks. The World War I scene, that awesome, epic World War I scene, as she jumps out of the thing and she's holding it doesn't need to do that. So as ridiculous as that sounds, good heavens. You took a shot from Steppenwolf. You took a shot. You also got plowed down into the concrete when he gave it to you. But still, you took a shot from Superman Live. That's got to be more powerful than Bullet. But that's not the way the logic in comic book movies work. And so, again, I could have Patty Jenkins call me tonight and say, actually, John, she is bulletproof. She just likes blocking bullets with style. Like Buzz Lightyear. That's not flying. It's falling with style. I guess Woody was the first one to say that. There you go. So I would contend, just from what we've seen in the movies, having to do this and do her little dance to try to block things instead of just standing there and letting them hit her, it seems that she is not bulletproof. Maybe we'll find out otherwise at some point in the movies, which is fine if we do. But so far, I haven't seen any evidence. We've never had a shot. We've had many scenes with people firing guns at her. We've never had a shot where a bullet hits her and just bounces off her. Other than, her wrists and things like that. So yeah, that's where I'll go with that. But let's see where they go with that. Let's see where they go with that. All right. It's a well-reasoned thing that you presented though, Lovin. You are perfectly well-reasoned though, but I just still think looking at the movies the other way. Okay. Next up, Andy Hong writes, 1 of 3. Supernatural showrunner Andrew Dabb revealed that the original plan for the series finale was still for Dean to end up in heaven, but we would see Sam's life see Sam's life play in fast forward. Then the Winchesters would come across all the people, whoever we'll come back down to Mike, whoever producers could convince to fly to Vancouver. They've met along the way in heaven, crowded into a rebuilt roadhouse, as the actual band Kansas would appear to play Carry On My Wayward Son. Dabb explained that this sadly and obviously was no longer realistic due to COVID. Even Kansas didn't feel like they could make the trip, which Dabb understood. I love the series finale we got, but this sounds even cooler, and I'm forever salty that Kansas couldn't be on the show if not for COVID. So for those of you who don't know, Supernatural has been never my number one favorite show, but it has been one of my favorite shows for many years, for at least a decade. I was a little bit late to the party on Supernatural, but for at least a decade, it's been one of my favorite shows to watch. That I knew at any time I could just pop on an episode, hang out with the Winchester boys, and just enjoy it. And that's why I watch it. I just love the chemistry, the camaraderie, the banter, the dialogue. I just liked it a lot. Now, for those of you who didn't watch Supernatural, like every other show, has a previously on Supernatural, right? And they play something out. But they had a tradition. At the beginning of every season finale, and they did this, I think, right since season 1, instead of a regular previously on Supernatural, they would do The Road Till Now, or I can't remember the exact wording, but something like The Road So Far. And instead of just whatever, they'd actually one time a year play that incredible song by Kansas, Carry On. Carry on my wayward son. You know that one? Awesome. They would play that song. Anyway, so they would play this song, and they basically, instead of showing you what happened on the last episode, they basically did a quick summation of what has happened this season so far as Carry On plays in the background. It was one of my favorite television traditions. For 14, 15 seasons, however long it ran, they would end each one. So this idea that they would actually end the show, and the way Supernatural ends is that it's at, both the boys have now died and passed away, and they're both in heaven at this point. And the idea that they were going to end it in a giant roadhouse, which is, of course, it would be in a roadhouse, with as many of the guests over the past 15 years all crowded into that Roadhouse with Kansas on the stage of the Roadhouse playing Carry On, it would have been the perfect ending. I mean, that would have been completely and utterly perfect. I mean, the ending we got, I thought was very satisfying. I was very satisfied with the ending we got, but still, that would have been a thing of beauty, man. That would have been a thing of beauty. And it's too bad we never got that. Thanks for sharing that with me, Andy. Appreciate that, man. All right, next up. Mike Levin writes, "Hey, John, why does everybody assume Falcon will take over for Cap? If you're friends with the head coach of the New England Patriots and he gets you a job on the team as a towel boy, but then he dies, people don't assume that the towel boy is the new head coach." Well, listen, I think it's pretty clear why people are making that assumption, because Cap gives him the shield. Now, I think, he should take the shield. I don't think he should be known as Captain America. I don't think anybody should be known as Captain America other than the real Captain America, which of course is Steve Rogers. But why people would assume that, it's pretty clear. Cap came back and he is Captain America, and he chose Sam to give the shield to. Does that automatically mean, was that him saying, "And by the way, Sam, you should start calling yourself Captain America too"? Like, he never said that, but still. I think it's pretty clear why people would think that. I mean, Cap gave him the shield, so there's that. I don't know that that's what they're going to do, but I think it's pretty reasonable that some people are making that assumption. All right, next up. Mike Levin also writes, 1 of 2. Earlier in the week, I wrote in about how Falcon is useless. When I did, I was strictly talking about skills, ability, background as a regular person. His stats, like you would find on the back of a baseball card, and I didn't mean to start a theological discussion about heart. Sorry for the confusion, but let's be honest here, that at the heart in the world wouldn't stop a bullet in the battle. There's a reason why when Galactus threatened Earth, the Avengers didn't send Rudy to fight him off with his big heart. Okay, no, that's true. That's true. And listen, this is one of the things that I've really appreciated about Falcon and the Winter Soldier so far. One of the things that I've really appreciated about the show so far is that they're not pretending like Sam or Bucky are Steve. Like in episode 1, Sam got into a hand-to-hand combat fight with Batroc the Leaper, played by George St. Pierre, my favorite all-time mixed martial artist. Of course, Cap fought him already in Winter Soldier and beat him and put down his shield to beat him. Sam had his wings and was using his wings in the fight, and Batroc still beat him. Which is, of course, Batroc would beat him. He's like probably the world's, if not then a top 5 or 6 world's greatest hand-to-hand combat guys, right? So I like they weren't just saying, "Hey guys, so now since we like Sam so much, he can take on everybody." And by the way, then we go into episode 2. And it's Sam and Bucky taking on the Flag Smashers on that truck top. Guess what? Cap would have won that fight. And guess what? Sam and Bucky didn't. So I really appreciate that they're telling, you know what? The best stories come with limitations, which is why a lot of people have a hard time making a good Superman story. But great stories come with what the limitations of our protagonists are. And not just suddenly magically saying they're the most powerful guys in the world because they've got a show about them. They show that they still have limits, and with the heart of heroes, they're going to find a way to persevere, push through, and still prevail. They're still going to find a way to prevail. Maybe they can't do it the way Steve did, but they can still fight, and they can still find a way to prevail. And that's what Steve never believed, that either Bucky or Sam could take him in a fight. But he believed that they would find a way, that they have the heart of a hero and they would find a way. And that's why even, yes, with the stats on the baseball card, he will find a way to be very effective and very useful. So anyway, that's just kind of my take on it. But I appreciate you following up on that, Levin. I really do. All right, next up. Saeed Habjoka writes, "Hey, John and Rob." Is Rob there? Rob is not here right now. "I love space movies and so excited for Stowaway." Man, that trailer was really good. We talked about this trailer, for those of you who don't know what we're talking about, this new Anna Kendrick movie, Toni Collette as well, Daniel Day Kim, called Stowaway, about this space mission to Mars to try to begin the process of making Mars habitable. And it's a 2-year trip. And one of the technicians of the spacecraft had an accident before the ship ever launched and was trapped inside the ship unconscious. And by the time he wakes up inside like the belly of the ship where he was doing maintenance on something, the ship has already launched and left, and it's too late. They can't turn around and take him back. But then they find out something goes wrong in the ship, and there's only enough oxygen for 3 people, and now they've got 4. And it's like, what do you do? It looks incredible, and I'm very excited about it. Anyway, moving on to the question. I love space movies and so excited for Stowaway. My top favorite space movies are Interstellar, The Martian. I love The Martian. Moon, of course, was great. Space Odyssey, and WALL-E. What do you think of this list? A great list. What is your favorite space movie list? Oh, well, right? Y'all know what I'm going to say. Star Wars. Star Wars is the greatest space movies of all time. Moon, Sam Rockwell. Directed by David Bowie's son, who then later went on to he did that train movie with Jake Gyllenhaal. And then he also did World of Warcraft, which, listen, World of Warcraft got mixed results, but like I'm telling you, doing a World of Warcraft movie is not easy. Doing a Warcraft movie ain't easy, and I thought he did a pretty good job, but that's just me. Anyway, Space Odyssey is an all-time classic. WALL-E is one of the great Pixar films. The Martian is remarkable. I love The Martian. Interstellar, not my favorite Christopher Nolan movie, but also very solid. But yeah, obviously for me, the space movie, Star Wars. Star Wars is my favorite space movie. All right, Teddy Wren writes, Cyborg is a villain. It's statistically proven if you give someone that much money out of nowhere, not only will they blow it in 3 years or less, but then someone near them will most definitely become a drug addict. He would know this from the interwebs. That being said, he has most definitely condemned that woman in the street corners doing ungodly things within the 4th year of the 5-year plan she probably didn't have. Okay. Oh, there's more. Hold a second. Oh, it's a separate question. Okay. So, of course, not the best scene in Zack Snyder's Justice League. The best scene in Zack Snyder's Justice League is Superman getting hit with the axe. But the most important scene in Justice League is the scene where between Cyborg seeing the plight and the struggle of the waitress and the mom, right? I've already talked many, many times about why that is the most important scene in Zack Snyder's Justice League. So I won't go into all of that again. But listen, joking aside, I remember a number of years ago seeing a statistic about like how many NFL players who retired with a minimum $1 million in their bank accounts, retired as millionaires, and within 3 or 4 years they were declaring bankruptcy. Like, and that's, I think it was more NFL players than any other league, but every other league had almost kind of the same issue. NBA players, like you just become accustomed to having a lifestyle and you forget to tone back that lifestyle once you're no longer a professional athlete and making the money you were making. All of a sudden it's gone. Maybe you develop some habits you shouldn't have, whatever. But yeah, I am not worried about that with this woman. And I'll tell you why. Because this woman, they already showed she is a responsible woman. I mean, she does everything she can do to provide for that kid. Her whole life is based around trying to protect and provide for that kid. And you notice that unless I'm remembering it incorrectly, I believe he bequeathed onto her like $100,000. Like unless I'm mistaking it, I don't think it was $100 million or anything. It was $100,000. When you give that to somebody who's not a professional athlete, who's become accustomed to making $10 million a year and I can just spend it like there's no tomorrow, that money fell on a woman who is clearly super responsible, has her priorities straight, and has the purpose of her life clearly in her eyesights. I think a person like that would be much more likely to responsibly handle that kind of sudden influx of cash than a lot of other people. Probably more than me. I remember my favorite radio program of all time was Fan 590, right? with Bob McCowan. And I would listen to his daily sports show. Actually, you know, my very first movie podcast was very much influenced. Actually, you know what? My saying, greetings and salutations, I mean, that's been around for a long time, but you know how I start every show with greetings and salutations? I actually completely stole that from Bob McCowan. Bob McCowan would start his daily sports show on the Fan 590, a nationally broadcast sports show, with greetings and salutations. And I just loved him. Anyway, he had this co-host on for once in a while, this older sports writer, Jim Hunt was his name. And he was an older guy and he would talk like this, right? He was this thing. And I'll never forget this one episode. This is a total side story, but it's one of the funniest things I've ever heard on radio. They were talking about this new contract some athlete just got. Let's say it was like $10 million. He got signed a $10 million deal. Now, this is about 12, 13, 14 years ago. And they were just talking and, you know, about sports and Jim Hunt, you know, and Bob says, well, what about you, Jim? Like, let's say tomorrow you came across and you suddenly had $20 million. What would you do? And if without missing a beat, Jim Shaky Hunt, well, I suppose I would develop a cocaine habit, which I nearly drove off the road. I started laughing so hard when because Jim Hunt like doesn't say stuff like that. Like it's just, well, I suppose I would develop a cocaine habit. I just about drove off the road. Anyway, you bringing that up kind of reminds me of that, Teddy. So no, I think he picked somebody. I think Cyborg picked somebody that was going to be responsible with whatever money that he then dropped on him there. So that's my guess on that. All right, Teddy also writes, I feel like Marvel could be working towards something with something like Doctor Who, which might work very well for potential fatigue. How it rebooted after a point and very different. Let me try this again. I feel like Marvel could be working towards something like Doctor Who, which might work very well for potential fatigue. I don't know what we're talking about. How it rebooted after a point and very different. I don't know what that means. Therefore, lasting much longer and yet different and very successful. I have no idea what any of that means. I don't even know if you're talking about Doctor Who. If you are talking about Doctor Who, I don't know why you would think Marvel is building towards Doctor Who. Now, I don't watch Doctor Who, by the way, so I have no input on this whatsoever about how it either would or would not be a great thing. But how it rebooted after, are you talking about how Doctor Who report? Anyway, again, I'm not really clear on what it is we're talking about, Teddy, but those of you who do know what Teddy's talking about, maybe it is a Doctor Who thing. Maybe you can comment on it in the comments section below. Anyway, thanks for writing it in anyway, Teddy. Teddy also writes, I think everyone's saying there should be a show about the blip and everything that happened is pointless, but evolving to become even more irrelevant as we are seeing those answers in pieces throughout the less cosmic shows like Falcon and the Winter Soldier. Yeah, so somebody brought up, well, let me see if he continues there. No. Okay, so somebody mentioned, we've had a couple of people mention and write into the show saying that they would really be interested in seeing a show about the 5 years after the snap. And what happened during that time. And specifically, what happened when everybody came back. Like we got a glimpse of that in WandaVision when Monica Rambeau, they gave her our first exposure to Monica Rambeau was seeing what happened after the snap, right? Just for a few moments. And a lot of people have talked about that. To me, I just don't see any purpose for it. Narratively, there's no purpose for it. Like we know where the world is at now. But whatever is interesting about that time period, they are revealing in the current shows, right? Like even in Falcon and Winter Soldier, they're revealing, hey, you know what? When things went, some people thought it was for the best. And then all of a sudden, 3 billion people reappear. There was chaos across the globe. Banks are clearly still trying to, because this has only been a few months since everybody came back. Banks are trying to figure out, how do we deal with people who've not been in existence for the last 5 years? And what do we do? And we saw that and the ramifications of that. So I agree with you, Teddy. I think anything that is relevant to the ongoing story in the MCU, of it was like in the years of the snap and upon the return. I think they're just dropping little bits of information throughout the shows to give us what we need on that level. But that's my take on it. Who knows? Maybe at some point they will make a show about that. I just don't see the purpose of it right now. All right, let's move on now to James Lockman. Going back to yesterday's show, when I asked about using a 4K projector instead of using a screen, couldn't you use a big thick sheet of white cardboard or a big smooth wooden board and paint it white? That way you don't have to worry about a screen blowing in the wind. Also, I've seen people online use the wall on the outside of their house as a screen. After you have that figured out, you can then set up some nice surround sound with Dolby Atmos. So what James was talking about was, I'm trying to figure out a way to set up a viewing area in my new backyard. Ann and I just moved. We got, our pool area and a really nice deck and stuff like that. I'd love to have that now. I'm thinking about just getting a 65-inch TV, which are really cheap these days, mounted on like a rolling stand that I could roll under cover and put something on, then I can roll it out when we need it. Some people saying we'll get a projector. You can, but I'm really worried about, because our backyard does not face other houses. We got a big open hills and trees and everything behind us that we get a lot of breeze. Like not windy, but a good amount of breeze. And I'm afraid that the screen is going to move as you're trying to watch something. So yeah, you can put something up on the wall, but is that kind of intrusive? I don't know. I'm still trying to figure it out, but I love that you guys are trying to think of some solutions for me. You know what I should do? I put up a video of the house tour, so you saw my backyard. Maybe I'll give you more of a thorough tour of the backyard. Maybe you guys can give me some ideas about what I could do for setting up a viewing area. I still think my best idea is just getting a TV on a rolling mount and then roll it out in front of the seating area that we have set up outside. And then when we're not watching something, just roll it away. But I mean, something really big on a screen with a projector, that would be pretty cool too, if I can think of it. All right. Thanks a lot for that, James. I appreciate that. All right. Ryan Lohner writes, one funny thing I did notice about Raya and the Last Dragon: the evil smoke demons look a lot like the darkening from the Dark Crystal, and the team of heroes includes two Skeksis, Aquafina and Benedict One. I totally didn't even think about that. God, I'm still so mad. I am still so mad at Netflix for canceling that show. Like, look, again, I don't know what the viewership numbers were. Maybe nobody watched Dark Crystal, but that show was awesome. They did season 1, and I thought it was absolutely wonderful. And I love the original Dark Crystal. So I was like, I don't know if you can equal they did a great job. And I am still very, very bummed out, Ryan, that they did not continue on with that show. All right. Boris writes, hey, John, I too found Hawkeye's wife calling suspect, but knowing Feige, the opening scene of Hawkeye is going to be his wife saying, I can't believe you kept my number active all these years. If Rob is there, which he's not, I'm starting Dota tonight. Can't wait for this. Thanks. And of course, Rob did a little bit of work on the new Netflix animated series, Dota. And so do check that out. I believe he is in the credits as well. So look for Robert Meyer Burnett in the credits of that. Yeah, I completely agree with you, Boris. Like, it's a great moment after the Hulk snaps and Hawkeye's phone rings and he looks down and he sees his wife is calling him after 5 years away. And she wouldn't have aged a day and he aged 5 years. Well, she comes back. She's, you know what? Now you're too old for me. Yeah, we had about 8 years age difference, which is fine. But now there's like a 13-year age difference. I think I need to find me a younger man, Hawkeye. But seriously. And it's always just, so it's a great moment, but it's like, wait a minute. Are you telling me that he continued to pay her phone bill for 5 years, kept the phone charged, and just all ready to go? But you're right. I wouldn't doubt it at all if Kevin Feige has them drop a little line like that in the Hawkeye series. You know what? I 100% believe that's going to happen, Boris. I 100% believe that's going to happen. All right, next up, we got McLovin who writes, hey, John, I'm going to say the unpopular thing. The government was right to give the shield to somebody else. From the government's perspective, even if Falcon was pardoned after the snap for years beforehand, he was a federal fugitive on the run in the eyes of the government. Even if you're pardoned, the higher-ups decide who gets the shield are going to be hesitant at the very least to give it to Falcon because of his past. He's known to disobey orders and cannot be 100% trusted from their perspective. Okay, here's the problem with that. The problem with that is, although they have not said it in the MCU yet, I think it will be mentioned. I don't think they just pardoned Cap and everybody who followed him in Civil War. I think after the events of Infinity War, they realized Cap was right. Cap was right. We, with the way we handled the Avengers after the signing of the Sokovia Accords, we caused the split of the Avengers, and if the Avengers had all been together as one cohesive team, they might have saved 3 billion lives. And that's our fault. And remember that Anthony Mackie, Sam was with Captain America during that time. This isn't like Bucky. Bucky needed to be pardoned for decades of assassinations and like working against the interests of the U.S. and all that. I mean, there's a lot of heavy stuff he had to be pardoned from. I think my underlying understanding and my guess right now, and we'll wait to hear something more definitive from Kevin Feige in the MCU, is that everybody who was on Captain America's side during Civil War is like, clean slate, guys. We're sorry. We're sorry. We drove a wedge between the Avengers, and we lost 3 billion lives because of what we did. So I don't even think he was pardoned so much as that was just removed. And that's why we saw Wanda walking around free. I think that's why everybody, I only think Bucky needed to be pardoned. So, and then also you got to remember, the government never took the shield away from Sam. Like if what you were saying was correct, then the government would have just stepped in and taken the shield from him, but they didn't take it from him. Sam decided to take the shield and give it to a museum. That's what Sam chose to do. You know, and I guess he had the option for taking up the mantle. Remember, Rhodey, a military guy, was like, how come you decided not to take up the mantle? I mean, so they always saw that as he had the option to do that. So anyway, that's just how I see 11. Maybe we'll find out. Maybe they will say something more definitive and it'll point out that you were right. But for now, that's just kind of how I see it at the moment. Thanks for writing that in, man. Next up, James Lockman writes, I don't think it's the PS5 itself that's causing Disney Plus to freeze. I think it's the Disney Plus app that most likely causing the issue. Same thing happens on my PS4, and I've had it freeze up on my iPhone as well. So I think what James is talking about, somebody wrote in last week that they were having constant freezing issues on Disney Plus, but I believe, if I'm not mistaken, they said they weren't having it freeze on any of their other devices, and none of the other apps are freezing. Now, of course, we're not talking about the momentary crash that Disney Plus has when a new episode of WandaVision or a new episode of Falcon and Winter Soldier comes out. So, and then we've had other people write in, as a matter of fact, James, saying they were having the same experience on their PS5. So it might be it might be a specific Disney Plus application as ported for the PS5 having issues. That doesn't mean the PS5 itself is the issue. Maybe it's the port of Disney Plus, but hopefully whatever it is, it didn't sound like he was the only one having that issue. So hopefully that's an issue that does get smoothed out for everybody. At least I hope it does. And thanks for writing that in, James. All right, where are we at here? Next up, we've got Silent J writes, one of two. I thought the opening action sequence in episode 1 of Falcon and Winter Soldier was amazing. It was incredible. And the visual effects were top notch. However, I have a friend who is incredibly hard on visual effects in movies and TV, and this was no exception. As you were involved in the visual effects industry, I'm interested in your thoughts on the effects in this sequence, as I often don't agree with my friend on this, and wondering if I needed my prescription checked. Hey, listen, all I can say, look, the quality of visual effects is as subjective as the movies themselves. Somebody can put a visual effect together and one person can look at it and say, I think that looks amazing. And another person can look at it and go, that's not working for me. So whatever. So only take what I'm going to say as my own personal opinion. And yes, I did work with a visual effects company for a number of years. I thought the effects were fantastic, particularly for TV. I thought they were absolutely incredible. I thought for a TV show, man, I thought that looked spectacular. And, obviously the choreographed action sequence itself was amazing, going in and out of the helicopters and all that kind of stuff. But from a visual effects point of view, Sanjay, as somebody who worked in visual effects, now granted, that was a long time ago, working in CGI, but I thought it was fantastic. like really, really good. So I would be interested to know what the particular criticisms your friend had. Like, did he just not like the overall look of it? Was there a particular moment that he thought looked really out of place? I don't know. Like, again, I saw the episode twice, not like 7 or 8 times, but both times I was personally very thoroughly impressed. At least that was my experience with it. All right. Thanks for that, Sanjay. Next up, the name's James writes, John, I'm recommending the new Empire podcast with Falcon and Winter Soldier showrunners to you. Pretty interesting. They discuss race, some key decisions made, and talk about what the tone of the show may be like moving forward. Name dropped 48 Hours and Lethal Weapon. 48 Hours is a total thing. I've mentioned that too, and Lethal Weapon. I will have to check that out. I did not know that the showrunners were doing a Falcon and Winter Soldier podcast. I am definitely going to go and subscribe to that immediately. I think when I go out for my walk tonight, I think I'm going to listen to that and check it out. So thank you so much, the name's James, for that recommendation. I'm definitely going to go listen to it. All right, next up. Michael Lagrange writes, Ghost of Tsushima quickly became my favorite game of all time last year when it was released. Chad Stahelski being aboard gives me hope. Of course, he was one of the directors of John Wick. Gives me hope the action will be quality. I'm okay with story changes as long as they keep the essence of the journey of Jin Sakai. We talked about this the other day. Sony, of course, created an entire division to take their video game properties and turn them into movies and TV shows. Like, they created an entire division just for that one purpose. And they've obviously been moving very, very fast. They've got like 11 projects on the go, including Last of Us, which is the one I'm really looking forward to. But they just announced this one with, of course, the director of John Wick being aboard to develop it, which is very exciting. Of course, Ghost was nominated this past year for Game of the Year. It didn't win, but it is one of, like, a lot of my, I didn't play it. I sat in the living room and watched my buddy play it. I watched him play it a lot. It's gorgeous and beautiful. It's got a great story, and the action for something like this could be absolutely fantastic. So I am looking forward to it, Michael. Okay, next up, Juicebox William writes, love the show, John. Thank you so much, my friend. If you've seen Showtime's new Bryan Cranston series, Your Honor, I don't have Showtime, so I have not seen it. Watch if you haven't. How did you feel about the show's ending? Again, I haven't watched it. I was completely satisfied and thought it was Bryan Cranston's second best performance behind Heisenberg. Well, again, it's difficult. I subscribe to so much stuff. Now, I used to have Showtime. I used to have Showtime exclusively because I used to love watching Ray Donovan. I believe Ray Donovan was Showtime. So I had Showtime. But once Ray Donovan drew to a close, I kind of canceled Showtime. I subscribed to so many services. I just haven't. So I have not seen that. I have been very interested in that because I love Bryan Cranston. I just know if I can sign up for a service. Like, I told myself, with all the services out there, you can't just subscribe to a service for one show. Now, I broke that rule when I signed up for CBS All Access, because I wanted to watch Star Trek Discovery, and I fell in love with Star Trek Discovery. I think Star Trek Discovery is great. My good friend Robert Meyer Burnett disagrees wholeheartedly. I think Star Trek Discovery is wonderful. Not the best show on TV or anything like that, but I think it's really, really good. I enjoy it very much. Anyway, but I just can't do that. There's just so many services now. I cannot sign up. So maybe if Showtime starts launching a bunch of other things that I want to watch, maybe I'll do it. But I am interested in that show, man. I'm not going to lie. I am interested in that show just because of Bryan Cranston. All right, next up. Jack Riggs writes, hey, John. Deadline has announced that Sony is going to be making Ghost of Tsushima. Of course, we talked about that on the show that day. A movie with John Wick's Chad Stahelski directing. I'm a huge fan of the game, but this comes as a surprise to me. What are your thoughts? Thanks, and keep up the good work. But again, you should not be surprised. Sony, again, has put together an entire division whose only purpose is to take their video game properties and turn them into movies and TV shows. Everything that is a Sony PlayStation game that is remotely successful over the next couple of years is going to get that treatment. And with all the buzz and pop and all the cinematic potential of a Ghost of Tsushima, you got to know that that's something they're going to do. So don't be surprised, and don't be surprised of everything else that starts coming out. Anything else that's like a PlayStation exclusive game, you will probably see get developed into a movie or TV show over the next couple of years, Jack. All right. And I'm excited for it too, man. I really, really am. Thanks for writing that in, dude. Next up, Dan writes, hey, John, where was I? There I am. Hey, John. So I've been rewatching all 10 seasons of Smallville, and I think it's the best Superman show ever. However, after watching first few episodes of Superman and Lois, I think this show has the potential to be as great, if not greater than Smallville. Now, listen, I've always liked Smallville. I also think it had a number of questionable seasons, particularly after Michael, what's his name who played Lex? Michael Rosenberg? It's Rosenberg, I think. I think it's Rosenberg. Anyway, not because I love, but just after Michael Rosenberg left, it's not like the show couldn't be great without Lex Luthor. It's just that everything else about the show just kind of declined in quality to me. Again, I'm not trashing out Smallville. I enjoyed Smallville. I watched all of Smallville. I really like Tom Welling. He was just terrific. He did an entire season of Lucifer where he played Kane. He was great in it. Anyway. But I'm not one of those guys that's like Smallville's one of the greatest shows ever, to me personally. But it was solid. I think of Smallville very fondly. Superman and Lois is so far beyond what I thought this show would be. Because I thought it would if CW has treated the Superman character with such utter contempt and disrespect, it has really bothered me. You guys have heard me talk about it many, many times. So I had zero hope for this show. But clearly they got other people running it. And it's been great. It's been great. And nobody is more shocked to hear me say that than me. But I call it like I see it. It has been wonderful. I have been really enjoying this Superman and Lois show. And I still expect them any day now to completely crap the bed and drop the ball on this. But so far, man, it's been great. And I've been really enjoying it. And yes, look, it's way too early to be saying things like this because they're literally 5 episodes in. They're not even 5 seasons in. They are 5 episodes in. So it's way too early to start talking about, is it going to be greater than Smallville? I will say this. It's just been really impressive so far. So let's see if they're able to continue. All right, next up. The Wakandan Forever writes, all right, time for Falcon and Bucky to team up. Dollar Store Captain America, give the shield back. It's embarrassing, really. P.S. Wakanda is learning my power chords and arpeggios. I'll start wearing leather pants and smashing guitars in no time. So listen, I gotta say, frickin' Walmart Captain America, I like the character. They did a really good job of getting us on board with John Walker as Captain America. I mean, we all hate the fact that somebody else is walking around with that name. We all hate that. Of course we do. But it seems like they're making him seem like a really good man. And I love the idea that they started the episode showing us that his heart's in the right place. He's motivated for the right reasons. He's got the loyalty of his friends and loved ones who are completely behind him and support him and believe in him. It's a good way to start. Now, I'm sure we're going to get some very dark side of him at some point, but I thought they did a really good job kicking things off with him. All right, next up, Mr. 47 writes, and wow, it definitely holds up to this day. What are we talking about? Did Mr. 47 say something earlier? I don't see any. Okay. So what is Mr. 47? And wow, it definitely holds up to this day. It's the type of film that was made for the big screen. The Dark Knight is a 10 out of 10, 2 out of 2. Okay, so obviously there is a missing 1 of 1, but yes, Dark Knight is a magnificent movie. To me, it's a top 3 greatest comic book film of all time. There are many people who believe it is a number 1 comic book film of all time. But the movie is a masterpiece. It's absolutely phenomenal. And I got to watch it if I get the opportunity, I want to see it on the big screen again, because it just really is so great. I mean, Christopher Nolan, the movie's now like what, 12, 13 years old, whatever. Christopher Nolan really set a bar when he made The Dark Knight, and it's awesome and incredible, and I got to see it on the big screen myself, mister. Okay, next up, we have John's Internet writes, so Hashtag restore the Snyderverse is trending as I write this, and I always wonder how many would it take? For fun, I'll take the trending number of tweets of movements, multiply it by the average ticket price, and see if a dent would be made at the box office. And normally when you do that, it turns out it would make no difference whatsoever. So let's say, for example, there was a bunch of people who wanted, I don't know, I'm just going to make something up here. Wanted to have Michael B. Jordan as the new James Bond. Okay, wanted Michael B. Jordan as the new James Bond. I'm just pulling something out of my ass here. Okay, and let's say it gets 1 million people tweeting about it, 1 million people sharing the hashtag Michael B. Jordan shaken not stirred. That's the hashtag. Hashtag Michael B. Jordan shaken not stirred. That's the hashtag. Yet 1 million people. Well, understanding that the average, in America at any rate, the average ticket price is about $10. That's if you balance out the most expensive tickets out there and the cheapest tickets out there. The Saturday night IMAXs in Los Angeles versus the 11:30 a.m. matinee in Boise. All right. The average movie ticket in America is about $10. So if all 1 million of those people who tweet out the hashtag Michael B. Jordan shaken not stirred, wanting Michael B. Jordan as James Bond, that equals $10 million in the box office. For a franchise that right now is in a place where it's making $800, $900, $1 billion at the box office, if everybody who tweeted out Michael B. Jordan, shaken not stirred, bought a ticket to that movie, it would make $10 million. It's insignificant. Look, I'm not saying whether you're fans of Star Wars or Marvel or DC or Harry Potter or James Bond or whatever else. I'm not saying fans' voices are insignificant, but in the specific case study of, trying to get Michael B. Jordan as James Bond and 1 million people write it, in overall real box office numbers, that is an insignificant number. You need to get like 10 times that. Like you start getting into the 100, 120, 150 million people on board with that. Well, now, or sorry, let me rephrase. From the 1 million, you're talking about the 10, 15, 20 million people, right? Because now you're talking about 100, that represents $100 million in the box office, $150 million in box office, 200 million. If you can get 20 million signatures, that kind of represents 200 million in box office. Still not a big chunk of the 800, 900, a billion that the producers want to see, but it becomes a very relevant number. So yeah, you would have to be talking, I'd say minimum 10 to 15 million, I think. And then once you do, that becomes a relatively significant number. Not the majority, but it becomes significant and worth looking at. So anyway, that's kind of my take on that whole thing. All right, next up. The 8th writes, I remember when one of my friends first got Movie Pass, we all laughed at him and called him an idiot as we were walking into Thor Ragnarok. He then uses it and cleanly goes in for free. You should have seen our reactions. We all ordered the card that same day. Oh, listen, I remember when Movie Pass not when it first came out, although I did get it when it was like $30 in LA for a movie a day. Oh my God. I was going to, how many times I was going to the movie? I spent a lot of money going to the movies. So I got that. But man, when it went to $10 a month for a very short period of time, it was like the greatest thing ever. It's the greatest thing ever. A lot of people underestimate. I hear some people saying that the movie theaters have to embrace change. But what a lot of people forget is the movie theaters, just as the pandemic kicked in, the movie theaters industry began the process of the biggest metamorphosis and change in the history of the industry. That change was moving from a single-use ticket experience to a subscription-based experience. This is the most tectonic shift in the history of the industry. Trying to transition from come to the theaters, buy a $15 movie ticket, come in and see that one movie, to, hey, join AMC A-List, pay $21 a month or whatever I pay here in LA, get 3 movies a week. That's 12 movies if I use them all. And in my theaters where, when I often go, I'm paying in excess of $20 for a ticket. That's like $200 plus a month I'm spending on movie tickets if I go 3 times a week, which is not unusual for me to do. And now I'm paying like 10 times less. It's amazing. It's the greatest thing. And of course, Regal has their Regal Unlimited. Alamo Drafthouse has their thing. Cinemark has their movie club. It is just incredible transition from that single ticket user experience to a subscription-based model. Massive, massive change. Now, it wasn't MoviePass to start this. Cineworld in the UK had been doing this long before MoviePass ever did. And I remember when I was at AMC Theaters, when I was still working with them, I remember being at the headquarters in Kansas. And even before MoviePass did their $9.99, AMC was already in the midst of researching and doing research and studies and everything on what Cineworld was doing over in the UK. Now, AMC Theaters, the reason they've been around for a century is because they don't rush into anything. They literally take 5, 6, 7, 8 years to study something before taking their first step. As somebody who used to work with them, believe me, I know they move very, very slowly. But it's an incredible metamorphosis. And once the theaters open back up again, you're only going to see movie theaters move more and more into that direction. I think that's great for everybody. I think that's great for the industry. I think that's great for the theaters. I think it's good for moviegoers. So we'll see how much they keep moving in that direction, the 8th. All right, next up, we've got Alan, who writes, "Hey, John, with the recent casting news about Bornin for... Pierce Brosnan for Black Adam, it got me thinking, do you think we will see Djimon Hounsou show up as the Wizard due to his connection with Black Adam? I would love to see it, and it would make sense." All right, well, I mean, I personally love Djimon Hounsou. Like, I love Djimon Hounsou. To me, he is like one of the best. I love the guy. He's incredible. But if I'm not mistaken, didn't he dead? Is it? I mean, maybe I'm not remembering Shazam right, but I believe he's dead. I believe the guy is dead. So, no, I don't think he'll be... Now, listen, Djimon Hounsou, I have loved Djimon Hounsou ever since he was in my personal favorite Steven Spielberg movie, Amistad, which I believe was his first movie. I think it was Djimon Hounsou. Make Us Free. I mean, I love him in that. And I love him in everything. I mean, he's been in like 3 or 4 different comic book movies. He was in, obviously, Guardians of the Galaxy. He was in Aquaman. He was in Shazam. I mean, he just pops up all over the place. I love him. But does the story need him to be there, especially after I think he's died? I think he died. Maybe I'm not remembering the movie right, but I think he died. So, no, I don't think we'll see him in there, and it wouldn't make sense since he's already gone. But, I mean, hey, listen, I won't complain. You pop in Djimon Hounsou into this movie, I will definitely not complain, Alan. All right, next up. Thomas writes, "Hey, John, big fan of the show. Last night, I decided to watch one of my favorite movies from Studio Ghibli, Princess Mononoke, and I have not seen this movie in a while. Have you seen the movie? If so, what do you think about it?" Yeah, we've talked about this thing a lot. You know what's funny is the North American translation of it, it has like Gillian Anderson, Minnie Driver, who, was a longtime celebrity crush of mine. Minnie Driver is one of the voices of it. Who else? I mean, there are a number of really, really good big names in it. So it's not an unusual kind of story format for an anime. I mean, you're talking about like, it's the natural world versus the growing influence of man in the world kind of story. But I love it. It's one of my favorites that they've done. And we do bring it up here. I think it's Anne's favorite, probably Studio Ghibli film. It's Anne's favorite one. Not my favorite, but it's up there, and I do enjoy it a lot. All right, next up. BK Dan writes, "Hello, John and Co. My semi-local AMC has reopened here in Connecticut. Nice. When do you predict my local Regal will reopen? Understand that there will be restrictions. Thank you, and bring on the filthy. Well, it's funny you mentioned that because just this past week, Cineworld announced. Now, Cineworld in the UK, they own Regal Cinemas. They just announced that I believe it's April 2nd or April 3rd, they're going to reopen Regal Cinemas. And they're going to reopen now. They won't be in time for the debut of Godzilla vs. Kong, but the first movie they're playing is Godzilla vs. Kong. So it's not far away. What is today, the 28th? So we're like 5 days away, 6 days away from it opening. So you should be seeing it open. That Regal Theater near you should be opening this week. Give their offices a call. Go look it up on their website. But I believe it is this week. It's April 2nd or April 3rd, I believe, that Regal Cinemas are reopening, which is great if you're a movie fan. All right, Michael Bradley writes, hello, John. Call me crazy, but I really like Wonder Woman 84. I'm not going to call you crazy, man. I realize all the plot holes and logic issues, but I like it anyway. Dude, that's the beauty of film. All movies are subjective. Look, movies are experiential events, and art is subjective. And so it hits us in different ways. Art hits every single individual in a very unique way and gives us all a different experience interacting with it, whether that art is a painting, a piece of music, a movie, whatever. Art are experiential things. Movies are experiential events, and they hit us in different ways. You are a different person than me. I was disappointed with Wonder Woman 84, but that doesn't mean you should be. If you watched it and that movie hit you and gave you a certain experience, that's all that matters. So no, you are not crazy for liking Wonder Woman 84. I mean, I personally didn't like it. I didn't get that experience, but you did, and that's all that matters. And just because some other people, including me, may not share your experience, that doesn't invalidate your experience. Your experience is every bit as valid as mine was. And yeah, we can discuss the weaknesses of the film. We can talk about what we thought were plot holes or weren't. But at the end of the day, it's what experience did that movie give you? And because you are a unique individual, it will hit you in a unique way. And if that unique way for you was a positive one, then that's great. I don't think you're crazy. I'm jealous. I am jealous because I wish I had that kind of experience. So anyway, do not apologize for that, Michael. Do not apologize for that. All right, next up, Sanji writes, I love the first National Treasure and enjoyed its sequel. I think they succeeded in bringing the Indiana Jones type of adventure into a more modern setting. They also have a balanced mix of mysteries, location, humor, action, and a pinch of romance. Yeah, and of course, the big news this past week, was that, number one, they do continue to work on bringing a National Treasure 3 with Nicolas Cage, with the, why do I keep forgetting the name of the girl from Inglourious Bastards? Oh, I keep forgetting her name. Anyway, they're with all the original cast. They are still moving forward with that, and they're still trying to develop that. And Disney Plus just greenlit a National Treasure TV show. Now, it won't be the same characters. It'll be a different set of characters following in a different sort of story. But they've got a National Treasure TV show coming. They're still working on National Treasure 3 movie. So if you are a fan of National Treasure, Sanji, now is a good time. Now is a good time to be a fan, man. All right. Quintus Deshawn writes, hey, John. Just writing to say, hope your day is going well. It is going well, thank you. Love the show and all that you do for the community. Oh, by the way, love that beautiful glass vase. Where are you going with that? That beautiful glass vase in your home tour video. Simply exquisite, my man. Chef's kiss. Well, anyway, thanks for watching my little home tour video. I appreciate that. And it's always nice, Quintus, when somebody wants to write in and just say something nice. By the way, Quintus, just a reminder that in the next couple of days, we're going to be launching our next episode of Movies in 20. It's going to be about Gladiator. And of course, one of the key characters. A lot of people, nobody talks about this character, but he is truly one of the key characters in the movie when you really watch it, is of course the character of Quintus. So Quintus, thank you for the nice note. And Quintus, keep a lookout for Gladiator, where we talk about Quintus. All right, next up, an anonymous viewer writes, when I was in my 20s and early 30s, a phenomenon happened that you may not have experienced. The midnight movie. Oh, I still remember the midnight movies, man. My wife, I mean, look, is the midnight movie screenings was not all that long ago. I mean, I was at AMC when the midnight movie screening thing was still a thing. Like when I started at AMC, midnight movies were still a thing. Like movies would open on the Friday. So what would the theaters do? They'd play only big movies for a time. Only the truly big of the big movies. They would play at 12:01 a.m., right? So Thursday night, technically Friday morning, but Thursday night at midnight, 12:01 a.m., they would have the midnight movies. So if you were a serious movie fan and a serious fan of whatever the movie that was going to be playing, you were there for the first screening at midnight. I used to love midnight screenings. But then what happened was, and this all started to happen while I was at AMC, suddenly there was an 11 p.m. on Thursday screening. It's like, oh, cool. Get an extra hour sleep. That's great. We get to get a little bit earlier. And then 11 p.m. became 10 p.m. And then 10 p.m. became 9, and then it became 8, and then it became 7. And now you'll see some 6:30 p.m. screenings the day before. The movie opens on Friday, whatever, October the 4th. Really, we all now know that means it opens on Thursday, October the 3rd at about 6 p.m., 7 p.m., 8 p.m. But yeah, man, I remember the midnight screenings very, very well. Anyway, my wife and I dressed up as Frankenfurter and Magenta nearly weekly to experience Rocky Horror. Two movies I really liked a lot were Wizards and Heavy Metal. Although, man, those are a little bit before my time. I know they were animated, but they were fabulous movies. Two questions. What are the chances of the midnight movie experience coming back? Have you seen these two movies? And if you haven't, you need to see them. So let's talk about the midnight movies thing here for a second. The midnight movie stuff is not coming back. And the reason they're not coming back is because it would mean them having to take away something that's already there. See, the midnight movie screening was great because that was the earliest we could see the movie. Be the first person to see it in your town by going to the midnight screening. But then once they gave us earlier screenings, again, the 11s, the 10s, and ultimately the 7 p.m.s, what that fundamentally means now is that to get the midnight movie again, they have to take those other screenings away. And I don't think theaters want to do that, and I don't think fans want that either. I don't think fans want that. Fans like having that option to go to 7 p.m. or 8 p.m. Like, remember, because Friday is still a work day. And I would always go to the midnight screenings of the movies I was looking forward to, but it did mean I was going to be pretty effed up the next day that I was working. Because even though I'd go and see the movie, get to bed at maybe 3, I still got to be up at 7 or 6:30, right? Depending on, this is an X number of years ago. And so it would really mess us up. So because they never took away midnight screenings, they just gave us earlier options and better options. Now listen, when massive movies like Endgame, right, or something like that would come out, you can go to a midnight screening because they would be playing it from 7 p.m., 8 p.m., 9 p.m., 10 p.m., 11 p.m., 12, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. They were running it around the clock. Like, there would be a screen in these big megaplexes that would start Endgame every 15 minutes. Like, every 15 minutes on one of the screens, a new screening of Endgame would start. And as soon as it was done, it would play it again. You know what I mean? So, but really, the days of the midnight screening are now probably behind us for that very reason. All right, let's move on here. Next up, we've got A113 who writes, I've heard that the success of Soul was one of the reasons Disney is now moving Luca straight to Disney Plus without premiere access. How on earth would they know this? They're not making any money. Well, for movies that go straight to either HBO Max or Disney Plus, the criteria they're looking at for what is success and what is failure is not how much money it makes. They're looking strictly at, do we get a bump in subscribers from debuting this on our thing? Whatever it is, whether it was made specifically for Disney Plus or whether it was something that they decided to move to Disney Plus, they're always looking at it like WandaVision. They're not measuring the success of WandaVision by how much money it makes. They're measuring its success by, did this bring in new viewers? Did this bring in new subscribers? And then do those subscribers stay once the show is done? That's their criteria. So they've decided that given the climate right now, let's see if we can get benefit from Luca. Instead of its theatrical way, let's see if we can leverage, it's a family thing, let's see if we can leverage some benefit from it by putting it straight on Disney+. And they had some great success with that with Soul. But it's not just Soul did well for them. It's everything. You know, we're still not quite out of the pandemic. They're not sure people, while a lot of people like me are willing to go back to the movies now, and oh my God, like Godzilla vs. Kong at like my local theater, like the first 3 days are all sold out. They're all sold out. Except for like 11 p.m. screenings that aren't sold out, but everything else is sold out. But I don't think families are willing to go and take their children quite yet. I'm sure some are, but I think they're figuring there's still a lot of families with children that they're not quite ready to take their children into that yet. Which again, I'm not a parent, so I can respect that. I can understand and respect that. So that's something that they've got to look at. So I think that probably has a lot to do with why they decided to try to benefit from it on Disney+. That's my take on it at any rate. Okay, next up. Just Jake writes, "Hey, John, I know that you've stated your love for Dungeons & Dragons, and maybe you've answered this question in the past, but do you keep up with Critical Role? No, I do not. And if so, are you excited for the animated series?" Now, my wife watches Critical Role. I don't. By the way, do not interpret that as me saying, I don't like Critical. No, I've just never watched it. That's all. Maybe if I did, I would love it. So that's in no way, shape, or form me casting any sort of negative comment on Critical Role at all. I just haven't really watched it. My wife has, and she absolutely loves it. I mean, we talked about the fact that it was getting an animated series up and going. I have not followed it. I clearly don't have a lot of interest in it, but I will check it out when it comes out. I mean, it's D&D related, so I'll probably want to check it out. So there is that. Thanks for that, Just Jake. All right, next up, Dakota writes, "Seeing that Jubilee was one of the main X-Men characters in the 90s cartoon, I would have liked to have seen more of her in the Fox movies, but hopefully Disney may do more with the Jubilee character when they eventually bring X-Men in." Yeah, I mean, here's the thing though, Dakota. Jubilee, they made her... Look, the movies were never based on the original, on the animated series. The movies were based on the comics, and even then loosely, right? Even then relatively loosely. And the movies were fabulous. They were never based on the animated series. So the fact that the animated series made a pretty big deal out of Jubilee should be no surprise that the movies chose not to go in that direction. I think there is definitely potential. I'm going to be honest with you. I've never found the Jubilee character all that interesting. There are many, many X-Men characters that I just generally don't find all that interesting. You know, Multiple Man, for example. But that being said, there could be some potential there. And they already showed, like in the last couple of Fox movies, they did have very small roles, but they had a Jubilee there. Not to mention, you know, Marvel is looking to, where they can, let's include some more diversity. Of course, Jubilee has an Asian background, so that gives them an opportunity. So it's like, hey, we need a 7th or 8th or 9th character here anyway. Jubilee is known because of the animated series, and it allows us the opportunity to have more diversity in our film as well. That could become one of the defining factor, one of the determining factors as well. Certainly something they should consider. So maybe we will. Look, I'm not going to lose any sleep if we don't get any more Jubilee. I've never particularly found Jubilation Lee to be one of the great characters. But hey, I could understand if they did, and there may be an opportunity for that, Dakota. All right, next up, we got Super Dude 95 who writes, "Hey, John and crew. Hope you're all having a good day. My question, what is your favorite Spider-Man suit? Whether it be from a film, game, comic, etc. I quite like the Tom Holland's homemade suit. Something about those googly eyes. I'm going to be honest with you. I'm not really one who cares much about the costumes. I really don't. I just don't want the costumes to look ridiculous. That's it. As long as the costumes don't look ridiculous. And I can look at the costume and go, okay, that's Spider-Man. That's Wolverine. That is Thor. That's Batman. As long as I can look at the costume and clearly know, oh, that's clearly Batman, then I really don't care all that much. Now, I'm not going to be facetious. Certainly, there have been certain iterations of certain costumes and certain movies that I've gone, whoa, that one looks really good. But it's really not important. Honestly, to me, the costume is kind of the same as the movie poster. The movie poster is not going to make a bad movie good. The movie poster isn't going to make a movie one iota better or worse. And also, to me, whether the costume is an 87% costume or a 95% costume, it's not going to affect how good or bad the movie is. Like a great example of this, this is a perfect example. It's canceled now, but I really enjoyed Black Lightning. It was not a show I was excited about till I started watching it. I'm like, this is really good. Black Lightning has the stupidest costume. Like, ridiculous. It's an absolutely preposterous, stupid looking costume. Did that in any way reduce my enjoyment of that show? Not in the least. It was a great character with a great story, and I just really enjoyed the way they carried it through. And yes, the costume is dumb, in my opinion. Some of you may like it, and that's great. I think the costume is dumb. So ultimately, I really pay very, very little attention to the costume. So I appreciate you asking which one was my favorite. I honestly, I just don't care enough about it to carry around a favorite in my mind. Like, maybe if you put together a graphic in front of me, here's the 18 different iterations of the Spider-Man costume we've had in all the various different movies. I'm sure I could point to one and pick one. But because I just don't care about it all that much, I don't carry it around in my head. So I'm not able, I'm incapable, super dude. I am incapable of giving an opinion on that, because as long as it looks like Spider-Man, then I'm all good. I'm all good with it. All right, next up. Dizzy Moose writes, "Hey, John, I heard you was a breakdancer." I was a breakdancer. Yes, I was. Hard to believe. I don't blame you, but yes, I was a breakdancer, and I wasn't bad. Back in the day, my question is, have you ever heard of the movie Beat Street? I mean, I was really young, but Beat Street? I have a love for old dance movies. This was one of my favorite from the 90s. Beat Street, king of the beat. You'll see him rocking that beat up and down the street. Beat Street is a lesson too, because you can't let the street beat you. I mean, that was the era, guys. Don't blame me. Don't hate the messenger. Don't hate the messenger. But yes. So in that time, much like a lot of different movies, there will be doppelganger movies of it. Like you had Volcano, so there was Dante's Peak. You had Armageddon, so you had I'm freezing on the name, the other asteroid movie where Morgan Freeman was the president of the United States. You had, you had White House Down, and you had Olympus Has Fallen, like those things. Well, back in that era, there was kind of the same thing going on, because you had the more famous one that people remember today was Breakin'. Breakin', and then, of course, Breakin' 2 Electric Boogaloo, which is now everybody makes a joke of now. Like if Something 2 comes out, people say, Something 2 Electric Boogaloo. But that all comes from Breakin' and Breakin' 2. The counterpoint to Breakin' from another studio was Beat Street. Beat Street was meant to be, I mean, you look back at it now, it's completely ridiculous, but Beat Street was a little more grounded. It was a little more gritty. Like Breakin' was, we're dancing to save the local community shop, right? Whereas Beat Street was, again, following this kid, living in the wrong side of the tracks, has a dream of making music and the breakdance culture. And so it was completely different. It's been a while since I've watched Beat Street. But yes, back in the day when I was wearing windbreaker outfits and my buddies were carrying around broke down cardboard boxes that we could dance on, yep, Beat Street was a movie that we were very familiar with. Beat Street, king of the beat. I haven't thought about that in a long time, Dizzy Moose. All right, next up, Max Vicious Aruda writes, Max Vinicius Aruda writes, "Hey, John, been watching you on and off for a few years now. Been more consistent lately since I've been working nights, and listening to your podcasts have gotten me through the night. Thank you. My question is, I Am Number 4. Why did that movie fail?" Yeah, I Am Number 4. It's funny when I think about that. And it was the kid who later went on to be in Magic Mike. What's his name again? I Am Number 4. I'm going to bring this up here. It's the kid who was in Magic Mike. What was his name again? His name was Alex Pettyfer. Alex Pettyfer. I remember there was 10 years ago, man, a lot of people thought Alex Pettyfer was going to be like the next big thing. And it never really turned out that way. Now, it also had Teresa Palmer, who I personally really, really like Teresa Palmer. She was in I Am Number 4. She was also the main love interest in Hacksaw Ridge. And one of my favorite things with her, well, two of my favorite things with her was Warm Bodies, the zombie movie. I love that movie. I love Warm Zombies. It's also got the kid who plays Beast. Damn it. What's his name again? The kid who plays Beast in the X-Men movies. Anyway, I love her in that. And then she was in that horror movie Lights Out, which I also really like. So, anyway, so you had Alex Pettyfer, you had Teresa Palmer, and it was based on, I believe it was based on a book, if I'm not mistaken. It was a sci-fi element and all that kind of stuff. Now, I remember this because, side story here, just a quick side story. I remember this very clearly because I went to, I and a number of other people were invited to this exclusive advanced screening of it. And it was a bunch of other people in my field. So we went to the AMC Century City where they booked the theater, and me and about 20 other people got to watch, 20, 30 other people, we got to watch I Am Number 4. And it was all right. I mean, it wasn't great. It wasn't great. But, so we watched I Am Number 4. And then right after, and by the way, Timothy Olyphant was in that too. Timothy Olyphant was in it too. So what happened was there was I think it's called Pink Taco. There was a restaurant in the Century City Plaza where the AMC Century City was. There was a restaurant called Pink Taco, and they kind of booked out the back of this big restaurant, Pink Taco, to have an after party of the screening. And go to the after party, and Zac Efron is there. Now, I had met Zac Efron on a couple of occasions quickly, like press occasions, like on days when he had to talk to like 100 other press at the same time. And anyway, Anne was with me, and Anne loves Zac Efron. 17 again. Anne loves Zac Efron. Like, not the same way she loves Justin Timberlake, but she loves Zac Efron. So I'm sitting there thinking, oh, this is so cool. I'll look good to my wife. I'll take her over and introduce her to Zac Efron. Like I'll say, hi, Zac, my name's John. I'm here covering the movie and thing. And now he wasn't even in the movie. I think he was dating Teresa Palmer at the time. Either that or he just said they were really great friends, so he's there to support her. I think they were dating at the time, but whatever. So Zac is there, and I'm thinking I'll just bring over and introduce myself. I'm John, and blah, 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 and then introduce Anne to him, and then I'm going to look like a big hero in Anne's eyes. My whole life, just so you guys know, I don't give a shit about anything else in life. I really don't. I give a shit about nothing. My whole YouTube channel could crash and burn tomorrow. I couldn't give a shit. The only thing that matters in my life, and I'm not even joking, I'm not trying to hyperbole here. The only thing I ever try to accomplish every day that I wake up in the morning is try to make Anne happy. That's my whole life. My life is about that. And it's a great life. I love this life. But my whole life mission every single day that I wake up is, how can I be as good of a husband as I can be? How can I be the best partner to Anne as I can? How can I make her smile today? How can I make her happy today? That's the whole purpose of my life. And I love it. Anyway, so I'm like, I'm going to look really good in Anne's eyes, because that's everything to me. All I care about in this whole world is, how does Anne see me? That's it. Nothing else matters. So I'm sitting here. I'm going to look so cool. I'm going to go over and introduce her to Zac Efron. And this is really impressive, because you have to understand, especially during that long time with AMC and when I was doing Collider, until I finally said I'm not doing celebrity interviews anymore because they're just a waste of time. I had met just about everybody. And you never expect them to remember you, because when they meet you, they usually have to meet 50, 60, 70, 100 other people that same day. So it really impresses me when I bump into a celebrity, say a second time, and they remember me. Like, that to me is really impressive. I remember that happened with Milo Ventimiglia, which was super impressive to me. I remember that happened with Chris Pratt. He even remembered my wife's name the second time I met Chris Pratt. He's like, John, how's Anne? I was like, how the hell do you remember that? Like, I found that very impressive. Anyway, this is a really long story. I'm sorry, but I'll finish it up here. We're talking about I Am Number 4, and I'm talking about all this stupid shit. Sorry, guys. It's a companion video. Give me a break. So anyway, we're at this after party for I Am Number 4. I see Zac Efron. I think I'll take my wife over and look into Anne. So I bring her over, expecting that I need to reintroduce myself to Zac Efron. because even though I met him a couple of times, those were days he met hundreds of other people. He sees me walking towards him. John, how you doing, man? I'm like, the reason I'm so impressed by that is because, and I don't blame actors at all. Actors at all. You don't give a shit who person number 75 is today walking in to do their quick 3 or 4 minute interview with you. I don't blame celebrities for that at all. Not at all. So I find it very impressive when a celebrity actually engages with a person, that they'll remember who they are. Like, that to me is super impressive. And so it only made me, this is why I'm now a loyal fan of Zac Efron for the rest of my life. Not only was I looking good to Ann because I was bringing over to meet him, my wife got to see Zac Efron point his finger at me and know who I was. John, how you doing, man? It made me look so good in front of him. Now, I have no idea if Zac Efron knows who I am today. That was like 10 years ago. I think it was like 2011, 2012, whatever. I have no idea if he would remember me from a hole in the wall today, but on that day, at that advanced screening of I Am Number 4, when he was there accompanying Teresa at that screening, and I was trying to look good in front of my wife, Zac Efron made me look good in front of my wife. And for that, I will always be grateful. Why did the movie fail? Because it just wasn't that good. It just wasn't that good. I mean, honestly, the marketing for it didn't look terrific. And if I look this up, hold on a second. I Am Number 4 box office. It obviously didn't make that much. It actually made a little bit more than I thought, but it was still a miserable amount of money. It made $149 million worldwide. They wanted this to be a full franchise. They wanted this thing to be a franchise. And that kind of money was not going to make you a franchise. And it wasn't all that well received either. And let me look up I Am Number 4 Rotten Tomatoes. I'm not going to be surprised to see a low number when I open this up. 33% Rotten Tomatoes. It had a really interesting premise. They just weren't able to deliver on it. That's all. They just weren't able to deliver on it. And so they never did make another one, even though it was totally intended to be a big franchise. All right, guys. Let's do one more question today, and then we'll wrap this thing up. We'll take this one from Charles Richardson, who writes, I love/appreciate small indie films, so it's bad of me to say that I have no interest in seeing Nomadland, despite the rave reviews. It looks good, but I just don't have that itch to see it like some indie films. Well, listen, there's no such thing. Indie films are not a genre, really. I mean, they're a category, but they're not really a genre. You can get indie comedies, indie dramas, indie period pieces. It doesn't matter. Just because you like certain indie films does not mean you like all indie films. Nomadland is a movie, like any other movie. And just like if you're at a restaurant and you see certain things on the menu, maybe something on the menu is the best dish in the world. But if it doesn't appeal to you, it doesn't appeal to you. If you've seen the marketing for Nomadland and just for whatever reason, it's just not grabbing your attention, then it's not grabbing your attention. It will probably win Best Picture of the Year at the Academy Awards. That shouldn't even happen this year, but it'll probably win Best. Chloe Zhao is probably going to win, Best Director this year for it. All signs seem to point to that. But listen, watching a movie is an investment of time and money. Time being even more important. And if you just feel like, look, I don't feel like spending 2.5 hours of my time on watching that, it just doesn't appeal, then it doesn't appeal to you. And that's not bad, Charles. That's not bad. All right. I said that would be the last one. Well, let's make this the last one. B. Wayne writes, John/Rob, Rob's not here today, obviously, writes, why do you think HBO didn't run Zack Snyder's Justice League as a weekly series instead of one and done? It had no weekly conversations and anticipation like WandaVision did. I just saw the last, oh God, please guys, write out words. I just saw the last Godzilla v. Kong trailer. Godzilla didn't go down from Kong's punch on that carrier. Wait till you see. No, he didn't go down, but it was a great punch. Anyway, from my understanding, and I could be wrong about this, because the right decision would have been to make this a 4, 5, or 6 episode miniseries. That would have been the right decision. It could have built up a week after week after week and grown the buzz week after week after week, as we've seen happen with Mandalorian, as we clearly saw happen with WandaVision. It just kept getting bigger and bigger and bigger and bigger as week after week ran on, and people would talk about it and buzz about it, and more people would jump on board and blah, blah, blah. Obviously, the right thing to do would have been to make it a 4 or 5 or 6 part series. From what I understand, it came down to a legal issue. And I could be mistaken about this, so don't take this as gospel truth. I believe I heard that it comes down to contracts and how the contracts with the actors would have had to have been renegotiated, and not just the actors, but the producers and everything else would have had to have been renegotiated and restructured to be a series as opposed to a motion picture, because there are distinct differences in how those are approached contractually. And at the end of the day, they just couldn't make that happen, so they had to release it all as one movie. That's what I heard, but I don't know if that's completely factually true. It does make sense. It does make sense. Because remember, they originally intended to release this as when they first announced it, the head of Warner Media said, we're going to do this as, I believe it was a 4, 5 or 6 part series. I can't remember how many. And that would have been the right thing to do. They would have gotten the most benefit from that. But I think it was a legal issue. I believe it was contractual issues that ended up making them not able to do it. So that's my understanding. Could be wrong. We'll see how that goes. All right, guys, listen. There are still a few more questions here to go from people like Dad Jokes, The Wakanda Forever, Mr. Graham 91, Bucky Rogers, and others. Do not worry. When we get going on the John Campea Show tomorrow, we'll start off the live questions with those ones there, and we will work our way through. But we got through most of the questions here today. We got through most of them. But we're over 2 hours now. I got to wrap this thing up, or else I'm not going to have any voice ready for the John Campea Show tomorrow. Guys, thank you so much for being here and hanging out with us a little bit as we talk about our favorite things in the world, movies and TV shows and streaming. Thanks to all of you for taking time to watch us. A special thank you to all of you guys who sent in these tips and questions. Number one, because you gave us great fun things to talk about. But number two, because you supported this channel as you did it. And all of us involved here at the John Campea Show, thank you guys very, very much for that support. Again, don't forget the John Campea Show is on tomorrow. That's Monday at 10 a.m. Pacific time. That's Los Angeles time. I believe that's 1 p.m. New York time on the East Coast. Make sure you guys come on in and join us there. That'll do it for me, guys. Thanks a lot for being here. My name's John Campea, and until next time, my friends, bye-bye.